Number 1. Ketchup, the rotten fish legacy. You probably have a bottle of this red goop somewhere in your fridge door. It's there, always. Probably next to 3 types of mustard you swore you'd use. But ketchup, America's sweetheart of condiments, has a history that smells fishy. No, seriously. Original ketchup, or ketchup, was a fermented fish sauce from 17th century China. It was dark, pungent, and had the culinary charm of licking a salted dock. British sailors stumbled upon it, loved the umami bomb, and decided to bring it home minus the fish. Because, apparently, rotting anchovies were a little too adventurous for British breakfast. Over time, ketchup got a colonial makeover. First mushrooms, then walnuts, then eventually tomatoes, which weren't even considered edible for a while because Europeans thought they were poisonous. So yes, your modern fries are smothered in something that once started as fermented fish sludge that people were scared might kill them. And let's not forget the real twist. The version we know today only took off because of Heinz, who decided the key to success was sugar, vinegar, and an unsettling level of uniformity. He also mass-produced it in glass bottles to prove there were no gross surprises hiding inside. Bold move for a condiment that was literally born in a barrel of rotting fish. Basically, every time you dip a nugget in ketchup, you're tasting a Frankenstein sauce built on colonial trade, spoiled seafood, and tomato-related trust issues. Bon appetit. Number 2. Chocolate. Sweet, bitter, bloody chocolate. The love language of Valentine's Day. The comfort snack for existential crises. The only thing standing between you and a full-blown breakdown at 3 a.m., but behind that melty goodness is a past that's less romantic comedy and more historical horror film. Chocolate originates with the Olmecs, Mayans, and Aztecs, who treated cacao beans like divine currency. They didn't eat it in sweet little bars. Nope, they ground it up, mixed it with chili, and made a bitter, frothy drink that was basically liquid war paint for rituals, battles, and human sacrifices. Fun. Fast forward to the European colonizers, who saw this sacred bean and thought, nice, let's steal it. Cacao quickly became a colonial commodity farmed by enslaved people across the Americas and Africa to meet Europe's growing sweet tooth. The food of the gods became the food of the elite, powered by brutal slave labor and endless exploitation. Even today, major chocolate production has dark undercurrents. Child labor, poor working conditions, and environmental destruction all cling to that shiny foil wrapper. So yes, chocolate is delicious. But every bar carries echoes of sacred rituals, stolen cultures, and centuries of economic exploitation. Sweet, right? Number 3. Sugar. White gold and black chains. Picture a fluffy cupcake. Sweet, innocent, probably pastel-colored. Now imagine it screaming in historical agony, because sugar, the very thing that makes it taste like childhood, is soaked in centuries of exploitation and colonial horror. Sugar wasn't always your go-to for making coffee bearable. It was once called white gold because it generated absurd wealth for European empires at an absolutely horrific cost. The sugar plantations of the Caribbean and the Americas were powered almost entirely by enslaved Africans. We're talking millions of people forcibly taken from their homes, shipped across oceans, and worked to death in brutal, back-breaking conditions just to feed Europe's insatiable craving for sweetness. And the kicker? The product was so profitable that plantation owners would often literally work slaves to death, then just buy more. People were treated as disposable tools in the pursuit of frosting. Even when slavery was officially abolished, the sugar industry didn't exactly get a halo. It morphed into a system of indentured servitude, shady labor practices, and imperialism light. Because if there's one thing sugar has taught humanity, it's that we will do horrifying things for dessert. So next time you lovingly stir sugar into your latte, just remember, that granulated sparkle came from an empire built on blood and addiction. Tastes great, right? Number 4. Coffee. The brew of revolutions and chains. Ah, coffee. Nectar of the modern office worker. The only reason society hasn't crumbled before 9 a.m., but this jitter-inducing beverage has a backstory that's less morning ritual and more global power struggle. Legend says coffee was discovered when some goats in Ethiopia got super hyped after munching on a certain kind of berry. Because of course, the world's greatest stimulant was discovered by over-caffeinated goats. From there, it became a religious drink in the Islamic world, a banned substance in 16th century Mecca for inciting rowdy intellectual debates, and eventually a colonial obsession. As coffee fever spread to Europe, colonial powers decided they wanted a steady supply queue, the rise of massive slave plantations in the Caribbean, Brazil, and Southeast Asia. Like sugar, coffee's global expansion was fueled by forced labor, land theft, and imperialism. In Brazil alone, coffee production was inseparable from the African slave trade, and when slavery was finally banned, exploitation just got rebranded under shiny new systems of contract labor and economic coercion. Even today, most coffee farmers earn less than a livable wage, while billion-dollar companies pump out unicorn fraps and pumpkin spice latte season like it's a holy right. So yeah, coffee may give you life, but it was built on systems that crushed a whole lot of others. Number 5. Bananas. The fruit that started wars. Bananas are the physical embodiment of harmless. They're soft. They're yellow. They come with their own biodegradable packaging. But peel back that cheerful exterior, and you'll find one of the darkest, most politically chaotic food histories ever to slip on a grocery shelf. Enter the United Fruit Company, a 20th-century corporate behemoth that basically decided Central America was its personal banana factory. The company grew bananas on dirt-cheap land, paid workers next to nothing, and had more political influence than actual governments. Think of it as a fruit company that moonlighted as a Bond villain. How bad did it get? Bad enough that the term Banana Republic was coined to describe countries whose economies were hijacked by United Fruit and friends. These companies supported brutal regimes, suppressed labor movements, and in 1954, literally convinced the U.S. government to orchestrate a coup in Guatemala, all because the country tried to reclaim land and give it back to its own people. Yup. A company selling bananas helped topple a democracy. Because nothing says tropical breakfast like geopolitical manipulation and CIA involvement. And let's not forget the modern banana itself, the Cavendish. It's a bland clone of a once better fruit, Rip Gros Michel, selected because it could survive global shipping, not because it's, tasty. And thanks to monoculture farming, the Cavendish is now under threat from a fungus that could wipe it out. Again, so yes, the humble banana once fueled imperialism, corporate tyranny, and actual wars. But hey, it's 99 cents a pound, so it's fine, right? Number 6. Nutmeg. The spice worth killing for. Nutmeg. That cozy little spice that lives in your grandma's apple pie and makes eggnog taste like holiday guilt. But in the 1602nd, nutmeg was basically cocaine for colonizers, and people were murdered en masse for it. Back then, nutmeg only grew in one place, the Banda Islands, a tiny volcanic chain in what's now Indonesia. These islands had the botanical equivalent of gold, and European powers were obsessed. The Dutch, in particular, wanted a total monopoly. So naturally, they showed up with ships, cannons, and zero chill. In 1621, the Dutch East India Company massacred nearly the entire native population of Banda. Why? Because they dared to trade nutmeg with the British. The Dutch took over the island, brought in slaves to work the plantations, and solidified their place in history as the psychotic mall cops of the spice trade. Oh, and in a delightful twist of historical irony, the Dutch later traded Manhattan to the British in exchange for a nutmeg-producing island. That's right, someone literally swapped New York City for seasoning. So yeah, your pumpkin spice latte contains the remnants of colonial greed, bloodshed, and land deals that aged like expired dairy. But you do you. Number 7. Lobster. Once trash, now treasure. Today, lobster is the crown jewel of fancy dinners. You crack it open with special tools, dip it in butter, and pretend you understand the wine list. But for most of history, lobster was basically bug meat for poor people. Back in colonial America, lobster was so abundant that it would wash up on the shores in piles, like stinky, twitchy sea bug mounds. It was considered prison food, literally fed to inmates, slaves, and indentured servants who probably questioned their life choices every time they got served another crustacean casserole. In fact, some labor contracts even included clauses limiting the number of times per week lobster could be served, because being force-fed ocean roaches was considered cruel and unusual punishment. And honestly, fair. So what changed? Well, in the 1802nd, canning technology made lobster a little trendier. Then came the railroad, which helped inland rich people who had never seen piles of dead lobster fall in love with the novelty of seafood luxury. By the 20th century, lobsters had been successfully rebranded as a high-end delicacy rather than the insectoid horror they truly are. Now you pay $50 to wear a bib and dig into something that was once the lowest tier protein source imaginable. Capitalism, baby. It works. Number 8. Potatoes. Famines and genocide in a root. The potato. It's your comfort food's comfort food. Fries, chips, mash, vodka. What can't this humble tuber do? Well, for starters, it can't undo colonialism, land theft, or engineered starvation. Which is awkward, because that's exactly what it was dragged into. Let's talk about Ireland, where potatoes were basically the national life support system by the 1802nd. Why? Because British landlords had taken most of the good farmland for cash crops, leaving Irish peasants to survive on tiny plots of potato-only diets. Then came the Great Potato Famine, a plant disease called Phytophthora infestans, swept through and annihilated crops. But here's the truly horrifying part. There was still food in Ireland, plenty of it, but most of it was being exported by British landowners. Because profit, over 1 million people died. Another 1 million fled. All because a colonial government prioritized grain exports over human lives and weaponized food scarcity against the Irish poor. And the irony? Potatoes aren't even Irish. They were brought over from South America by Spanish conquistadors after being looted from the Inca Empire. So this root vegetable has been kidnapped, colonized, commodified, and then turned into curly fries. That is one dark journey for something that now comes in sour cream and onion flavor. Number 9. Foie gras. Torture in a tin. Foie gras sounds fancy. It's French. It's expensive. It's usually served in portions so tiny you wonder if the chef hates you. But here's the thing. Foie gras is short for fatty liver, and getting that fat isn't just a natural quirk of goose genetics, it's the result of industrialized bird torture. Traditionally, foie gras is made by force-feeding ducks or geese large amounts of grain using a tube shoved down their throats. This practice, called gavage, causes their livers to balloon to 10 times their normal size. It's not a cute little overindulgence. It's liver failure. And the worst part? The technique dates back to ancient Egypt. People saw that migrating geese naturally gorged before flying south and thought, neat, what if we weaponize that? Fast forward a few millennia and now we've got entire factory farms dedicated to turning birds into delicate, buttery liver balloons for the pleasure of Michelin star menus. Animal rights activists have rightly labeled the process as cruel. Many countries have banned it. Even some French chefs are moving away from the practice. But foie gras still lives on as a status symbol, a luxury food item, whose dark origin is literally organ trauma. So next time someone offers you foie gras on a tiny cracker with a micro sprig of something unpronounceable, just know, it came from a bird that lived through the Saw franchise in poultry form. Number 10. Wine, grapes, guts, and god complexes. A candlelit glass of Merlot might make you feel cultured and elegant, but don't let the wine snobs fool you. Wine has a messy, chaotic, borderline cultish past, and it involves way more human sacrifice and body fluids than your local vineyard tour will admit. Let's rewind to ancient Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome, where wine wasn't just a drink, it was a religious experience. Like, literally. People got drunk in temples, believed they were communing with gods, and sometimes performed human sacrifices to please their tipsy deities. In Egypt, wine was considered sacred, but also dangerous. It was associated with blood, and drinking it was symbolic of consuming divine power. Fast forward to Christianity and you get communion. This is my blood. Still wine. Still weird. And let's not forget the Roman Empire, where vineyards expanded through conquered territories, often built by slaves, who didn't exactly get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. While emperors toasted to conquest, the people who harvested those grapes were being worked to death. Even in more modern history, wine production has involved exploitation of migrant workers, chemical-laden farming practices, and a marketing strategy that romanticizes regions built on centuries of inequality. So yeah, sip that Chardonnay. Just remember, wine isn't just fermented grapes, it's liquid history with a colonial aftertaste. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.